Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in on the steering wheel just above the L for the Lexus sign. And Sergeant Clarke, do you see what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And from this photograph, just above the steering wheel on the right-hand side, what do you observe there?
Vehicle's odometer reading.
And is that what the odometer read as far as when you took this photograph outside of the Canton Police Station on February 1st?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2617. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little on the center of that photograph. And again, Sergeant, if you could describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph.
This is a mid-range photograph of the vehicle's display screen, the center console, with what I would describe as the backup warning system activated as the vehicle approaches a pedestrian.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, the next photograph, which is 2618. And again, Sergeant, what are we looking at in this photograph?
More or less the same as the last photograph, sir.
Closer up image than the prior photograph, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Thank you, sir. I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Giannetti?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, Trooper.
Good morning, sir.
Your earliest involvement in this case was on February 1st of 2022?
That's correct.
You ended up, and by the way, at that time, you were a trooper assigned to the Crime Scene Services section?
That's correct.
And that was in which town in Massachusetts?
Where I was assigned, sir?
Yes.
Maynard.
Maynard, okay. About a year later, you actually joined the Norfolk CPAC unit or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, correct?
That's correct.
And when you joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, Lieutenant Brian Tully was the supervisor of that unit, was he not?
Yes, he was.
You are still with that unit, correct?
That's correct.
So you've been there for approximately 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years.
That's correct.
And so you were there when Lieutenant Tully was removed as the supervisor of that unit, correct?
That's sustained, and folks should to disregard that.
Your Honor, if I could request an instruction.
Jurors, pay no attention to that question or answer. That is not properly before you with this witness.
Is Lieutenant Tully still the supervisor of that unit?
Yes.
I'm going to see you at sidebar for just a minute, please.
All right. David Giannetti going into the Tully saga, who of course is no longer with that department and shut down by Judge Cannone. They went to a sidebar. Krista Ramey still with us, a little underwhelmed. I thought we were going to see video. It was just some stills showing that the backup camera worked and that the odometer was at a certain spot. So maybe it'll be Trooper Poll that comes in for that portion of it. The pushing of the envelope, it does create, you could tell that Judge Cannone is very sensitive to her prior rulings, like every other judge that we watch. When someone goes beyond where they're supposed to, the judge is human, right? And we just saw an example of that. We've seen a lot of them in this case. How does that play to a jury typically? And is that something you should worry about if you're defending Karen Read, not to make the judge mad? Or do you go all in because this is a fight for justice?
So I have very specific feelings about this. This is a good question for me. I really think that courtroom deportment and decorum is very important. And when you look at a judge in a case, and I know that Karen Read supporters have lots of feelings about Judge Cannone. Judge Cannone is an excellent judge. She has been conducting herself throughout this trial just fine, as far as I can tell. For a jury, she is the gatekeeper. Her clerk, her bailiff, her court staff, those are the most important people in the courtroom to the jury. And you want to make sure that jury loves and trusts you as representative of Karen Reed. So when you seem to be going afoul with something that the judge has told you to do, the jury tends to think that you did something wrong or that you're trying to pull a fast one. And they don't like that. They don't trust lawyers anyway going in. So I don't think this sort of envelope pushing is good. I'm not saying I don't believe in pushing the envelope. I do. And I think that there are ways you do it all the time as trial lawyers. We argue in opening statements. We try to lead a little bit on direct when our clients are fumbling around a little bit. You can push some envelopes, but you don't want to piss the judge off in front of the jury because that just doesn't help you or your client.
Yeah, and this jury, this is their first time around. Presumably they didn't watch the entire first trial, so they're coming in with fresh eyes.
Hopefully not.
And they, hopefully not. And judges have that parental sort of role where, as a jury, you're looking for guidance constantly, and there's the judge always helping you. Don't want to make them mad. Doesn't look good. Let's go back in, pick it up after the sidebar.
Okay, so going back to February 1st of 2022, you learned that Michael Proctor had called your unit, resulting in your involvement in this case on that date, correct?
That's right.
And Michael Proctor had requested that you go to the Canton Police Station?
That's correct.
At the time, were you aware that the Canton Police Station, or the Canton Police Department, I should say, had a conflict of interest with this investigation?
Objection.
Rephrase it.
Well, were you aware when you were called out on this case that John O'Keefe had been found mortally wounded on Brian Albert's lawn?
I was advised of that fact upon my arrival.
Okay. And you were advised of the fact that Brian Albert's brother was a Canton police detective?
I did not know that.
All right. Still, it was the Canton Police Station and not a state police barracks where Michael Proctor instructed you to go, correct?
That's right.
Was he there before you, or did you arrive there before him?
He was there before me.
When you got there, where did you see Michael Proctor within the Canton Police Department?
Inside the garage bay.
And is that also called a sally port?
Yes.
And when you got there, was Michael Proctor the one to direct you to the Lexus SUV?
Yes.
And when you got there on February 1st, that was the first time that you laid eyes on that vehicle, correct?
Yes, it is.
There was no other investigator from the State Police Detectives Unit or the CPAC unit there with the Lexus SUV except for Michael Proctor, correct?
There were other investigators from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office present that morning.
In any case, you had no personal knowledge prior to your arrival of how long Michael Proctor had been with that SUV before you got there, correct?
That's right.
You have no personal knowledge about whether anyone was monitoring Michael Proctor while he was near the vehicle before you got there?
That's correct.
And before you got there, you had no idea how much access Michael Proctor had to that vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your assignment was to take photographs and to process the passenger's compartment in particular for fingerprints.
Correct.
And you did that.
Yes, I did.
Bless you. About a year and a half after that, on July 18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in part, you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did you know that at the time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
At the time of that interview on July 18th, before you began questioning of Colin Albert, had Michael Proctor revealed to you his connections with the Albert family?
Sustained.
Will you approach?
Go on to the next area and see if you can come back.
Did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained, and jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question, disregard it.
I need to be heard at sidebar.
I will hear you.